Good evening. Have you ever stopped to think about what your life is made up of? And I'm not trying to get all Neil deGrasse Tyson here and say anything about cosmic dust or the stuff of stars or anything like that. No. What is your life really made up of? From the time you can first remember all the way up into wherever you're at now. That's what your life is, and that is you. You can divide you into two different categories. One of those categories is highlights. For example, an award, an accomplishment, a dream that you set out after and succeeded in getting. Those are highlights in your life. But they don't make up the majority of your life. The majority of your life is made up by mundane things. Mundane things like driving to work every day, being at work every day, sleeping, eating, cleaning, building, fixing. There's so many things that are just mundane little things that you do every day. You probably don't even think about it. And a lot of the times, maybe it's something that kind of sucks. You got to do it. It's not fun. Sometimes they're downright shitty. But that is the bulk of what makes up you, is all of these small things that you do every day. I had an interesting comment in my last video from Dulce Amor Gamez, and I hope I pronounced that right. She requested a video on why is it hard for people to find God. The only thing I can think of replying to that is because God is found in everything in our life. He's mostly found in the mundane things, the small things in our life that we don't pay any attention to, because that is mostly what makes up our life. He can be there for the highlights, but not necessarily. He can be there when you feel good, but not necessarily. He's always going to be there when you feel bad, if you look for him. Being sorry and having regrets is not a terrible thing. It's a thing that helps you set a better path for yourself in the future. I knew a person once. I don't think she really knew who she was. She used many different names and many different accounts on many different social media platforms. To this very day, she still follows suit with this kind of life. She doesn't know who she is. She's always looking for the highlights. It just so happened, Dulce, that after you asked that question, I saw a video by Jordan Peterson, and he quoted a psychologist by the name of Carl Jung, who said that the reason people can't find God is because they're not looking low enough. First of all, I thought it was an amazing coincidence, or perhaps providence, that I saw that video shortly after I saw your comment. But it also kind of reinforces what I think about the mundane in your life. That's really the low points in your life. We'll call them the low points. Not that they're anything to be ashamed of. They're just the bulk of the boring part of your life that you just do every day. I think that's what he means when he says we're not looking low enough. I'd also like to mention Saint Teresa of the Child Jesus. She was known for her philosophy of the little things in life, finding holiness in the little things in life, just the things that happen every day to you. You don't have to go out and look for it. So it was kind of like a message to these highfalutin, moralizing, crusader type Christians that are going to go out and save the world, and looking for all these great things to happen. And her philosophy was the opposite of that. It was these things, the things that are meant for you in this life are going to happen to you. They're just the everyday things that happen. Sometimes they could be highlights. Sometimes they could be really low. It could be something really terrible that happens to you too. But those are the things that God wants you to use to find Him. Especially since it's most of your life. And since I'm presuming that anybody that's trying to find God would want to find Him 24/7 at their max output. They would try and find Him in these times when they're bored and when they're tired and when they're maybe zoning out while they're driving or whatever. These are good opportunities for people to converse with God. So I think that's where you can find Him. And also I'd like to add as a personal caveat to the end of that, God is not a feeling. I think that's something we need to remember too. If we're really searching for Him, we have to know, first of all, that He is a being. It's not just a feeling. So feeling good doesn't equate to God. God can grant good feelings. And sometimes when we do good things, we get good feelings for doing them. But not always. And I would say that the majority of the time we don't. Just like in everyday life, the mundane makes up 80% of your life. I'm just throwing that number out there. I would say that the same thing would follow with good feelings and bad feelings. 80% of your life is not going to be good serotonin pumped feelings. It's just going to be like the rest of your day. And even when we're feeling bad, like something really terrible happened to us, those are oftentimes people search out God because they don't want to feel that pain, and they would like answers. But to carry on from that, when we're on that plane, that plateau where things don't feel good or feel bad, we still have to converse with Him. So it's not about feelings. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not about feelings, and it's just the little things. St. Teresa, the Child Jesus, also known as the Little Flower. There was someone who could just take the smallest things that happened in the day and turn it into part of a garden that she could present to God on the day that she died. I went to visit St. Teresa once. In the Catholic Church, they sometimes keep the relics of saints, and in her case it was her body, her whole body. It was on tour. You couldn't see it. It was in a casket that was made to look kind of like looked like a castle. It was kind of cool, actually. She stopped at a nearby city on this tour, and some friends and I decided to go. It was at a big cathedral in the downtown, and they had blocks cordoned off with police cars and road blockades. You had to go around and stuff. Like it was like Kiss came to town or something like that. There were so many people there. It was just phenomenal. It was quite a good feeling. But I got a chance to witness that. That was pretty cool. But however I felt at that moment, many years ago, probably 20 years ago now when that happened, however I felt at that moment is not there anymore. But I still think of her. I still think of St. Teresa. I still think of that moment, and that moment reminds me of her, and she reminds me of God. I think that's just how things work, and you have to keep it alive on a daily basis. It's something you have to work for every day. It's like, if I could make a comparison to second degree black belt, going for my second degree black belt. Between now and then, I'm going to have to do a lot of shitty things that I don't want to do. They're going to suck. I'm going to have to increase my cardio. I'm going to have to get stronger. I'm going to have to practice those katas. I'm going to have to get rid of a lot of bad habits that I have. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of sweat, and it's going to suck every minute of it. But once I've got my second degree, and I look back on it, it's going to be all worth it. If you don't know Dulce, go check out her channel. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. She is an awesome supporter. Show her some love on some of her videos. Yeah. Thanks for suggesting that, Dulce. It was a really good topic for me. Hopefully this is the third and last time I'll have to record this Canadian Arctic Radio out.